I've been on Reddit for 2 years now, and I just found this subreddit. After reading a few of the top posts, I realized what had happened this summer to me is a perfect fit here. I haven't written anything in a long time, so sorry if this isn't the most articulate post. It's messed up for a while, and I'm still not completely okay, but it's easier to cope. It was the middle of summer, and my parents had left for the weekend to go to our house in the Cape Cod. It's about a 2-hour drive away, so it's no big deal for them to leave me alone for a few days. My mom had made some pulled pork and pasta for me to heat up whenever I wanted. I also had some money if I wanted to order a pizza or something. Things were all good. The first night alone, I stayed up until 3 in the morning playing Xbox. So I woke up really late the next day. When I checked my phone, I saw that it was a little past 1, and I had made plans to play some street hockey with my friends at 3. So I threw myself out of bed and stumbled into the shower. I take really long showers, so when my parents are gone, I go mental. I was in there for about 45 minutes on my phone, scrolling through Reddit and Twitter, when I heard my front door open. The bathroom is directly up the stairs from the back door, and the thing is pretty loud when it opens and closes. I immediately froze, since obviously I was supposed to be home alone. I waited for about 2 minutes, ears trained in trying to hear anything else. Nothing. I figured it was just the wind, or maybe my parents were home early. So I turned off the shower, wrapped my towel around myself, and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. The stairs to the kitchen, where the back door is, are pretty tight and walled in. So it's essentially like walking down a tighter version of this, but replacing the rail with a wall. So I can't exactly see into the kitchen when I walk down. My house is really old, and each step on the stairs makes a super loud creak. I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible. I probably took 45 seconds walking down all 12 of the stairs. So when I get to the second to the last stair, right before I could see around the corner into my kitchen, I take a little breath to compose myself. In my mind, I knew it was going to be something stupid. There obviously wasn't going to be anything in the kitchen. There's no way I wouldn't have heard any other noise, and there's no reason for them to still be in the kitchen, even if there were burglars in the house or something. After sort of mentally chastising myself for being such a wuss, I sort of chuckled to myself for being so stupid, then casually walked down the last 2 steps and turned the corner into my kitchen. Standing about 2 feet away from me in the middle of my kitchen is a man staring straight at me, perfectly still, with a massive smile across his face, just staring at me. The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or the smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his side. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I've ever seen. They were where one would normally hold their arms, but he had rotated them to the point where they were almost completely reversed, as well as lifting them up and a little behind himself. I'm not sure why I remember this so much, but it's the most demonic, abnormal position I've ever seen. Honest to God, I think I almost had a heart attack right there. Looking back now, I can realize how creepy this situation was, but in the moment, I just took a step towards him and punched him as hard as I could in the jaw, sort of half slapping and pushing him towards the ground. The second I connected, I beelined up the stairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen with my heart beating out of control. I sprinted into my room and locked the door behind me. I quickly put a chair up against the doorknob like you see in TV. Almost without thinking, I immediately called 911, nearly in tears, and told the operator what had just happened. As I sat on the floor of my room and practically in the fetal position, staring at the door, praying a cop would be here soon, I noticed the light coming from the gap between my door had just stopped. He was standing outside of my door. There's no words to describe the feeling I had. I was paralyzed with fear, watching the shadow across the bottom of my door shift in tiny ways. I stayed balled up, staring at the gap, praying the man would go away for what seemed like an hour. All the while the 911 operator was asking,
"Hello, sir? Sir, are you still there? Hello?"
I didn't want to make a noise. Even if I wanted to move my arms to bring my phone to the mouth, I don't think I could have. Eventually the light returned to the gap, and I heard the faintest footsteps. slowly creaking on the wooden floorboards as he walked down the hall. It was silent for a few minutes, as I just sat there curled up still, unable to even speak. I heard banging on the front door and the sound of 2 officers entering my house. I finally felt safe. I opened up the door and the 2 of them were standing there. I almost cried. Nowadays, my parents don't even leave me home alone. And thank God. I check every lock on the house before going to bed, and I still occasionally get nightmares. My heart starts racing whenever I see someone standing still. Even working with sketch artists and a few lineups, the police never found out whoever was in my house. And that sends shivers down my spine every time I look outside, half expecting to see him standing across the street, smiling under a lamppost. I have no idea what he wanted or who he was, but regardless, let's not ever meet again. I was 14 at the time of this, so keep that in mind for context. I sat on my bed, in my house on my own, per usual. My parents were going to be out for the night, and we lived in a fairly peaceful area, so even the strictest parents would have to let their son watch over the house. As I was on my laptop watching videos, I hear a knock from the door. Mind you, this was 2 a.m., and I was already paranoid from my previous experiences. There's no way I was going to answer that door. But my curiosity was definitely piqued. Since my house is 2 floors, there's a window right above the door in which I could pull these blinds up to a slit to see who was actually there. The porch light was on, so light wasn't too much of a problem. I had to look to see who it was. When I looked, there was nobody at all. I was just about to pull the blind down when I saw someone under the light at the end of the cul-de-sac, and I almost jumped backwards. This person was in a conveniently suspicious looking hoodie and tracksuit with no light showing any facial features. His arms were to his sides, and he was staring directly at me. It was weird. He didn't move at all. He just stood there under the light. After what seemed like 10 minutes, he just turned around and walked back into the darkness of the main street. I just sighed and went back to watching videos. Perhaps he was just some weird guy who came from the train station near my house. I didn't know, but any justification was better than the alternative. Eventually, around 3 a.m., I fell asleep. I woke up around 4:40 to the sound of my dog silently growling behind me. I thought it was because he wanted to go out into the garden, so I turned around and froze in terror. The same person from the street was now in my doorway. Again, no light hit him from the front, so I could only make out a little bit of an outline of his face. I just stared into the void, which what I thought was his face, only for him to break the silence finally with advice, which seems very silly at first glance, but I have definitely forever took it to heart ever since.
Lock your back door.
And as he did the first time, he turned around and walked towards the stairs. I was still frozen. He then left through the back door. When I finally gained my composure, I sprinted downstairs and got to the back door itself. He was now in the garden. I could only see his outline. He stayed still for a few moments, only to sprint off into the woods moments later. I never found out who he was. I didn't really care to tell my parents what happened, and yet to this day they still ask why I insist on keeping the back door locked. Honestly, I believe he was a warning. If he had been an unstable psychopath, I definitely wouldn't be here right now. Considering some of the experiences I've had since, I say locking your doors, even in peaceful areas, is great advice. So to the 2 a.m. security checker, thank you, I guess. Even if your intention was bad, I still learned something from this, and from you. This happened well over 10 years ago, so I'll try my best to describe the events accurately. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine, via a big double glass door on each of our rooms. Next to the balcony are 2 trees. One I often used to climb up and down from the balcony itself. This balcony faced out to the street. One night when I was about 13, my brother and mother weren't home, so I was in bed reading with a very dim reading light. I heard what sounded like something moving in one of our trees outside. But this doesn't worry me because possums and bats are common in our area. Now I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony. As mentioned previously, the doors faced out towards the street, where the street lamp light was always visible through those curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. Shadow is tall, so it wasn't one of the neighbor kids that I'm friends with, and it definitely wasn't all of my 5-foot mother. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying to not be noticed. They wouldn't likely be able to see into my room, but I could see them thanks to the streetlights behind them, creating a dark silhouette. They moved past my doors, out of sight. I sat there unable to move or even think about what to do other than be absolutely still. That is until I heard another sound. The sound of someone trying to open the glass door on my mom's side. I didn't know if she had locked them, but I wasn't taking any chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened for what the person was doing now. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in, surely, and all I had to do was wait for them to realize that and then they would leave, right? Well, I heard light footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of doors until I saw that shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze. He couldn't see me. He couldn't know that I could see him. I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door handle and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity. But thankfully, when this person tried to open the door, it did not open. It was locked. I sighed, such a sigh of relief that I was worried he had heard it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile phone as my mom thought it was too young for it and couldn't have one yet, and the landline was at the other end of the house. But I was far too scared to take my eyes off this person or even to call for help. I was silently crying, tears falling down my cheeks as I internally prayed that they would just leave. And I heard him stop moving, and he said,
"I could just break the glass, you know."
Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on the balcony moved out of sight, and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off of it. When my mom came inside, I was hysterical and was barely coherent in telling her what had happened. Eventually, I got the message across, and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck in the street that matched the description of a truck that had been reported recently for attempted child abductions near my school, only a block away. Since I walked that short distance daily, the police suspected that he had followed me or seen where I live and then waited for me to be home alone. So to that creepy dude who scared the hell out of a 13-year-old girl, yeah, let's not meet again.